I'm from Los Angeles, but my parents are from Tlacolula. They migrated in the 80s to the US, and we were born over there, but we have this like dual identity, so we've been in both places. We spent all our summers here. My parents actually had the idea of moving back here when we were much younger, but that wasn't so viable. So we went back to the States, and we would come since I was about 9 every year until I was 18.
For the whole summer?
The whole summer. So it was either the whole summer or Christmas break or spring break. But it would be like the day after class, going to Oaxaca, a week before you get back, you're going back to the States.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the traditions that you did during your time in Oaxaca?
So we celebrated Day of the Dead in the States, but also I got to see it for the first time here when I was, when was it? In 2013 was when I first saw it here. And it was 10 times bigger than what we did in the States, but it was the same traditions that we kept going on in the States. So my dad always had an altar, a 3-story altar, and we moved everything around in the living room in the States. And here there's an altar room in everyone's home that's dedicated for this big altar for Day of the Dead. And you set it up on the 30th or 31st. And the tradition that we have is, and I think it's, I don't know if it's Tlacolula or the Valley region, that you deliver an offering to your godparents' homes. So that includes like your godparents for baptism, first communion, confirmation. That can continue up until like if you're married or just different godparents that you had throughout your life. And you take a decorated bread, you take a basket of fruit, like pomegranates, like it's just an offering that you go, a candle, and you go to their home and you present this offering at the altar, and then they like sit you down and invite you over for some chocolate, hot chocolate and bread, and usually mole, you eat mole. And we would do that in Los Angeles all these years. And we got to experience it in 2013 here in Oaxaca. So my godparents' parents are still in Tlacolula, where my parents are from. So we symbolically went to their homes out of respect to visit them. And it was a really fun experience.
Awesome. Love that. So you're one of 4. So how many godparents on average were you visiting?
About 9.
9.
And then my parents had their godparents. So it was a lot of visits. It was usually done like the 31st, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So it was like Halloween and Day of the Dead on the 31st. And then the 1st, it was strategically going to visit all of these godparents in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
With all the traffic.
The travel map would be very specific.
I think it was always like a mystery language that my mom spoke with her sisters, and we honestly always heard it in like when they would gossip. It was like when they didn't want us to know, they would switch over to Zapotec, and we'd be trying to understand, but it was completely different than Spanish. Then we would always ask my mom, "Why didn't you teach us Zapotec?" And she said I didn't see it as necessary. I never thought any of you would have any interest in it. It was always taught that her first language was Zapotec. She learned Spanish kind of forcefully when she was 13. Her mom really wanted her to be able to communicate and not be isolated from the rest of the state or the country, if you will. So then when my mom migrated to the States, she had to learn English. She had to let go of this of Zapotec. So she didn't think, we were in the States learning Spanish and English, she didn't think it was necessary. And I do applaud a lot of parents whose kids my age or younger are in the States and are learning Zapotec. So there's something like they were very like, I guess maybe more grounded in that aspect. There's a lot of people that still know Zapotec.
Sure.
Yeah, so I always wanted to kind of know what that was and learn it. Usually it would be in little phrases, but it like progressed, so me wanting to learn the language. When I went to college, we learned a lot about Indigenous people in our courses, but I didn't really connect that first as like it was about me or about people, but it really was, and I learned there to appreciate Indigenous people, Indigenous language. It helped me really like solidify my identity as an Indigenous person, like Zapotec from Tlacolula, from Oaxaca. I always knew we had different traditions, a different language, different even foods that we ate that wasn't necessarily Mexican. And I took a course on Latin American studies, Latin American religions, and there we learned about the different Mayan religions that they're trying to preserve in Guatemala. And my professor's husband was from Guatemala, Mayan, and their children were both identities, and I really like identified as that. So I had this, like I speak English, I speak Spanish, but there's also this other missing part, which is Zapotec, and it's always like a part of me. And it's something that I was able to see there. And it was like my interest in learning Zapotec just kept growing from there. I think there's more visibility now, and I feel it's from 2013 when I took my first class to 2019. I think there's more, at least for my family, there's more knowledge and acceptance that I'm learning Zapotec. It's not something strange anymore. Before it was like, why don't you speak like French or learn how to speak Chinese, or that Zapotec is dying. I don't think they see it or a lot of people don't see it as such anymore. All the campaigns now surrounding the Year of the Indigenous Language have definitely helped that. I think maybe I'm a little sheltered living in Oaxaca. This is all happening in Oaxaca, but I feel like even on social media, you see different organizations showcasing this all over the world in the United States. I did make a trip in about 2017. I was working on a research project, and I had to go to Native American reservations in the States. And there's always been this confusion if I say I'm Native, because a lot of people associate that with only Native American nations, which are in the US. But I went there and they would ask me, are you Native? And first I said, no, I'm not. And then they're like, but where are you from? And they asked me Mexico and then Oaxaca, and then do you speak a different language? And I would say, yeah, my family speaks Zapotec, and they would tell me, you're Native. So it was this like shared identity that we have. We're a different nation, different language, but it's still something that is like unique to us. So it's all of the Americas. We're a Native people. So I think they had more awareness than I did then, but now I have like so much more awareness now in 2018 about the language. We create a really positive culture here at En Vía for the women to be able to speak their Indigenous language freely in the courses, at the charging meetings, on the tours even. And we'll do sometimes the translation from Zapotec to Spanish, and then Spanish to English. So I think we create like a very positive atmosphere for that. I think now it's been recent. So our education assistant has been here a little over a year, and she is fluent in Zapotec. And to my understanding, the last person who was here was not fluent in Zapotec, but she could still help them or understood Zapotec enough to be able to help them. But the fact that the education assistant isn't fluent, she'll ask them at the beginning of the class She's from Tiltitlan, so they speak Zapotec from Tiltitlan, and it changes between communities. So in Tiltitlan, she'll ask, do you want this class to be taught in Dixta, is Zapotec, or Dixtil, which is Spanish? And they'll be like, Lisa. Like they want to be
overwhelmingly?
Yeah, overwhelmingly. And it creates a lot of like a really safe space, or people, I always see say the women are able to express themselves more freely, comfortably, confidently in Zapotec. So my number one supporter has been my grandma. She understands a lot of my choppy Zapotec and can understand what I'm trying to say, and that she'll help me know this is how you say it. She also is a businesswoman, entrepreneur, and she speaks with Zapotec with people from different communities. She works in front of a hospital where all the region goes to, so she understands the different dialects. So she can tell me, this is how you say it in your mom's town, this is how you say it in Tlacolula, this is how you say it in the town she's originally from, and this is probably the Zapotec that they taught you in Tiltitlan. Then sometimes they'll say, this is a wrong way to say it, but this is a correct way. But she has understanding more. So every night, I'll say good night to her, I'll say good morning to her, just different words that I practice every day with her that have helped me really in my understanding of it. In the courses, when I do sit in to observe the class with Isabel, the education assistant, I jot down on my phone words that I keep hearing and I try to put the word in Spanish for, and at the end I'll ask Isabel, what does this mean? Does this really mean that? And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm kind of off, but then I learn that vocabulary. At first she didn't understand why I would want to learn Zapotec. It was seen as something of the past, or associated with lack of education, I guess even income levels, and now she understands kind of my passion for it, why I want to even live in Oaxaca and learn Zapotec, and I'm able to use it with the women in our program. She was just here on a visit, and we went to order some tortillas from one of the women in our program, and I told her, you speak Zapotec, why don't you just speak Zapotec with it? There's no need for Spanish. She's like, I never really thought of that, just because she has to use Spanish more often. But I told her, it would make me so proud if you could just speak with her. You're comfortable in Zapotec, she's comfortable in Zapotec, and that's what they did on our visit there. I was just so happy. We had met other women who wanted to possibly join the program, and I never thought, my mom was in town then, that she could help us, as she could be a translator for us. She's fluent in Zapotec, that's her first language, is something that she's really knowledgeable in. And it's something that now she can help me. Sometimes I'll call her. I remember I did I had a quiz in my Zapotec class, and we had to look up a word, how to say cheers in Zapotec. And I called her in a panic right before class. And I'm like, how do you say cheers in Zapotec? I didn't do my homework. And she was able to help me. It's I can't remember it now, but she will help me. I'll remember it.
You got the point in the quiz.
Yes. Just in the classes, they are always happy. Like I was saying earlier, when they say, "Do you want to speak in Zapotec? Do you want the class in Zapotec or Spanish?" And it's never Zapotec. It's Zapotec, and it's very lively. So I always say that you can see their true personalities when they're speaking their native language. I see that, and people have told me that about me when they hear me speak Spanish, and they say I speak it more formally. And when I switch over to English, I'm more informal, hey, what's up, and all this stuff. And they're like, you're so different in English, and I'm like, what do you mean? But I think it just comes more naturally to me, and this is the same for them. Zapotec is their first language. It comes naturally. They know all the vocabulary in Zapotec. There's no need to use Spanish, and they're like giddy. They make jokes. They'll even like gossip like within this time. Like it's just happy, and it's always like a positive thing to be able to speak Zapotec. Knowing who you are, your identity, is what is the most important, and I see it being really directly linked with speaking Zapotec. For example, I always was like, am I from the US, am I American, am I Mexican? And I didn't feel Mexican, I didn't feel American only, I felt like all these parts of it, but I think this part that has been able to like wrap everything together is I'm Indigenous, Zapotec, I speak Zapotec a little, my family, though this is my root. These are my roots. And I think for the women it also, they can be proud in their identity. So I think that's kind of the most important part in being able to speak Zapotec. Not losing your identity. So being confident in who you are, not doubting, like, is it because I'm from this town or that I can't reach or obtain these things? I honestly think this movie Roma, which brought Indigenous languages and Indigenous people also like on the scene, was something big. They speak Mixteco there. They were doing, in the film, they do a song in Mixteco. And it was something like, there's songs in Indigenous languages, like of course there are songs. So I think just like spotlighting it and being like proud of who you are, where you come from.
Do you know any songs in Zapotec?
No. I know, now I remember cheers in Zapotec.
Yeah.
It's Chich Bebiu.
Chich Bebiu?
You like Chich Bebiu?
Chich Bebiu?
I feel it doesn't just end with the Year of Indigenous Languages, that all these efforts that are starting or that are being spotlighted are able to like transcend into different parts of even like I was saying, the judicial system, Congress, different ways to make Indigenous people and the languages more visible, and not just in Oaxaca or from Oaxaca. They're all throughout Mexico, all throughout the Americas, and then all throughout the world. This is like going on. It exists, it's alive. These nations, like even in the US, are alive, are present, should be represented. So I hope it brings like about inclusion. A lot of the education system is now recognizing the languages, either like teaching the Indigenous languages in school as a subject, like learning English or French. Some more so than others, teaching Indigenous languages or having teachers who are fluent in the Indigenous languages. For Oaxaca, I always mention Sepiadet. They're a nonprofit who have really brought about visibility for the Indigenous languages in Oaxaca. But they also highlight like campaigns, they highlight what's going on in Congress, they work training interpreters, translators in the legal system, partnering them with different Indigenous communities to be able to have their voices heard. They do a lot of, they share news, different news outlets, things that are going on. I never realized that like a lot of people who are in jail because of their lack of having an interpreter present. So some think they can be in jail because of lack of communication and the issue hasn't been solved. So they bring about all this, all these issues surrounding Indigenous languages to the forefront.
Great.
So we have cheech review.
Cheech review.
Is cheers. Then we have we have nagish, which is delicious, but in my mom's town in Díaz Ordaz, they say niche. So it's
Niche and
nagish. So it's similar. You can catch on. Then we have so one of my first phrases that I like compiled in Zapotec was what is it? Sergio Teca Sacru. So we're talking about a cousin. Teca means like no, or like you're rejecting it. Sacru means cute. So I was like, this guy is not cute. And everyone just laughed. They understood it, but it didn't make sense like grammatically. So I asked her, how do you say I'm gonna spank you? And she was thinking of it, and she said, "Qua" means to grab, and "pomp" means like butt in Spanish. So she says, "Qua pomp, qua pomp." So then she's like, "Why?" And I told her, "Qua pomp," and then I just spanked her. So we'll always do that, like "Qua pomp, qua pomp."
Is that your new greeting?
Yes. Then like sometimes I'll get home late, and sometimes she'll be like, "Why are you getting home so late?" But I'll just say, "SG." It means like see you tomorrow, like good night, see you tomorrow. Yeah. What else did we say? I really like the greetings that you say for different hours. This is not the best pronunciation, but for morning is Sakstil. For midday, like 12 to noon, it's Sakleji, and it makes reference to the position of the sun in the day. Sakshi is good afternoon. Sakshin is in the night. And Rulgel is midnight. Rulgel. Yeah, well, just to be proud, I think there are a lot of kids right now who are struggling maybe between Spanish and Zapotec because there's more Spanish spoken, but to always like preserve that, to keep that, to instill that in your children, or even just for the parents who were able to teach their children Zapotec, who now maybe my age, it's like a great asset to have, to write that like on your college applications, on resumes, like all this is really important, and sometimes we don't give that value. It's the same as if you said you spoke French, like you speak another language. So just be proud of that.
Yeah, love that. And one last time, can you tell us what cheers is?
What?
What cheers is?
Oh. Cheech review.
Cheech review. Thanks so much, Lily.
After 20 days.
Okay. Ready?
Take 10.
Yeah. Okay.
Take 11.
Legit.